see you standing there with your dark and blonde stripped hair. Oh no, see you looking over here with your blue-green Netherlands stare. Hey now, slow down, don't know how to handle this. Hey now, guess I'll hang around, see what this feeling is. Am I feeling too much too soon? 'Cause I don't know the first thing about you.
My next guest is a country music artist hailing from Great Falls, Montana. This singer-songwriter made his way to the West Coast pursuing a career in acting, but found himself fanning the flames of his musical upbringing, diving headfirst into the LA music scene before making his way down to Oceanside, California. We discuss going all in on yourself, the importance of long game mentality, and how ideas that don't go as planned often work out for the better that we couldn't yet see. Please welcome my good friend, Sammy Listoe.
On my mind, am I feeling too much too soon? 'Cause I don't know the first thing about you. A little map on your heart tattoo. I heard first I love is true. Oh, do you feel the same way that I do? Is it alright if I call you baby? Or am I just crazy? Said am I just crazy? Oh no, thinks she's turning me down, telling me about
We
a
are
boy she knows.
rolling.
Ask her
DollyWould
how long he's been around.
podcast episode 5.
Number 5.
I know. It's not that many, but I'm still losing track.
That's
still
awesome.
having to figure it out.
That's good, man. That's good.
Yep, and we're in the new setup, new situation. So we got a little bit loungier, cozier setup this time.
Yeah, it looks good.
I'm excited.
Yes, sir.
But so I got Mr. Sammy Listoe in with me today. Super excited. We've only really known each other maybe a couple months now.
Yeah, not not too long at all.
Yeah. And
No.
so got kind of connected with you from a good friend, my friend Jill.
Yep.
And she just happened to run into you somewhere.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool story. I always tell people about it just because of the way we're kind of going with working together now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just one night we were, a buddy of mine and another buddy, we were out just kind of at one of the bars in Oceanside and ended up chatting with her, and we all ended up hanging out and got the guitar out, and I was just playing some tunes for everyone. And she's like, "Oh, you got to meet Dolly. You got to meet this guy. Like he's awesome. He's huge in the music scene out here." And yeah, you got me in at the Vineyard 1924, which I
Yeah.
really appreciated,
Yeah.
which is just such a cool venue, great place. And then, yeah, I'd never really had a band technically. And we just started talking about that. And we got to play a couple weeks ago, which was just magic. It was so cool for me to be able to experience that. And the guys, I mean, Marco and Steven are just super incredible musicians as well. So it was really a blessing. And so it's kind of one of those stories where you're like, man, everything just felt like it was meant to be. It was really cool. So and now we're here.
Yeah.
Doing your 5th podcast. It's really cool.
Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
super stoked to have you. Yeah, I would say it's funny. She hit me up. She's like, "Hey, ran into this guy, and I just feel like he might be someone you want to connect with." And, I always kind of take that with a grain of salt a little bit just because you're like, I don't know, you just never.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, I'll check it out. And then, yeah. And I was like, oh man, I was like, dude, this guy's got like a lot of stuff going, and like obviously like super great songwriting, great voice, all those things. I was like, wow. And then, which was kind of crazy to then, when I had you come out to the Vineyard and I saw you performing and stuff, and I was like, man, this guy's like really, like he's got the confidence that's up there. It looks like you've done it for forever.
Yeah.
And then, so then when you had told me, you're like, man, he's like, yeah, actually, it's kind of more of a recent thing. And I don't really have a band. And I was already in my head going like, man, how do I nuzzle my way into this guy's band? I was like, oh, doesn't have a band. I was like,
Yeah,
perfect.
Hey, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just put all my favorite people around it.
Absolutely. No, I'm super grateful for that, man. I mean, I mean, even just one time together, I know we're trying to get to playing tonight and a little bit more. It's been fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Songs are great. It was last time that we got together, and it felt like everything just jived really quick.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those where we all, between us as a band, I know that everyone just kind of locked in.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things like, man, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
And I know that like the kind of music you're doing kind of just lends to that. Like it's going to be just a good time,
Yeah.
which is exciting. I mean, it's kind of weird thinking about it right now with everything that's going on,
Totally.
but it's a kind of a cool place to be in, knowing that this has to come to an end at some point.
Yeah.
And eventually we're going to get to play somewhere.
Yeah.
And so it's no better time than right now to kind of be like, let's start figuring it out, let's start piecing it all together.
Yeah. And I know we'd kind of talked about that previously, was it's like this whole time that we have, obviously the COVID time and the lockdown and stuff that people are dealing with, is you can kind of take that any, whichever direction you want to go. You can take it as you're kind of settled in and you're waiting for things to happen, or you can kind of make things happen right now behind the scenes and work really hard to be ready when things kind of open up a little bit more again, or however things change. Be prepared for that when you can get back to playing for folks and we can get back out and doing it again. So
yeah,
like you said, it's cool to be able to connect and get something going and be ready when that does happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to dive into kind of just more of like your story of kind of getting here, and because I know you're from Montana originally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'd love to dive into that, like where, because I know you come from kind of a music family.
Yes.
I'd love to hear kind of some about that for sure.
Yeah, totally. And like I told you before, my voice, I played quite a bit this weekend, so I'm going to try and work through it. My voice is a little gone, but we'll figure it out. We got some tequila and beer here to open it up a little bit. Exactly, right? So, cheers, man. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But, yeah, man, I mean, my whole mom's side, she's the youngest of 9. And they're all just incredible musicians. I mean, in their own right. And she has been in a band, I mean, ever since she was super young. She obviously was the youngest, so she always saw her brothers and sisters were, always doing music and whatnot. So she was just kind of groomed for that. And that's kind of what I followed. So I did like musical theater and whatnot growing up a little bit, and I raced motocross was the main thing.
Oh, really?
So that was kind of my focal point until I was about 20 years old. So that was something that was a huge part of my childhood. We'd travel around and whatnot around the state of Montana and race the state championship there. And around 14, my family and I moved out to Southern California, my folks and my sister and I. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of just a way to get to a place with more opportunities. I think is Montana's amazing and beautiful and great, but there are so many things, especially motocross wise, in Southern California. It's kind of the mecca for that. So we got out here and I raced for several years. I was able to race a little bit of semi-professional and race some of those races, but it got to the point where it was pretty expensive, and it was kind of the acting and music kind of just slowly, especially watching my mom play and being in that family, it really just nudged its way in, and that was just kind of felt like a natural transition for me. I was like, this is really where I belong. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so when I turned 21, I was working at an auto repair shop, and I had a really good gig there, a really good thing going, amazing people there. But it was something where I was like, man, I need to go chase this thing a little bit. And I ended up moving to LA and moved into a little room in Koreatown in this house with not much. I sold my truck. I had just had a motorcycle I was cruising around on and was bartending and kind of followed that whole thing, and did that. Did the music thing, did the bartending, did the acting, and that's where I kind of started to reconnect with the rest of my mom's side of the family. I got to go out to Nashville several times, and my aunt and uncle, my cousins live out there, and they all play music, and they're all just incredibly talented. So it's always fun to kind of get in that realm with them and connect with them and play with them and sing with them and do those things. So that just continues to push me and propel me forward, is to have those kind of people in your corner. And so yeah, I mean, there's so many different things and so many different ways I've gone, but it always just goes back to the music, and it goes back to that connection, obviously with the family and everything who continue to do it. And so it's always been just a fun process with them.
Yeah, that's cool. I met your mom, not this last gig, but the one prior.
Yes.
And I remember she came up and started and yeah, I mean she's super excited and she seems like such a great supporter and just so like seems so stoked to see you doing music. And
Oh yeah. No, she's the number one supporter, number one fan, and I'm a huge fan of hers too. And that's what I think it's cool. We really have that connection, is to be able to share that. I think growing up, my dad and I have always been super tight and had a really strong connection, especially in the motocross, because he was kind of the one to push me in that and the trainer in that. And then as I got older, the music kind of took over, and that really helped me just further my bond with my mom. And so we're always talking, music stuff, and she'll have a gig and I'll have a gig, and it's just it's a cool thing. I don't know a whole ton of people who get to experience that, and it's a fun thing to tell people, hey, yeah, no, my mom's in a rock band. And it's just a blast.
Yeah, that's rad.
Yeah.
So you moved to LA and you started doing music. How was navigating kind of in LA doing music? Like, what was that experience like?
It was very interesting. When
it always is.
it was a trip, to be honest with you, because I moved out there really to do acting, was the main thing.
Okay.
So I picked up a guitar around 18, and I'd written stuff, but it was just it was just an outlet. It wasn't anything I really took completely seriously. But when I moved to LA, it was kind of a long process as far as getting an agent or getting the right headshots and whatnot. So I'd be kind of, and I didn't know anybody out there. So I'm just in my room in this house and kind of on my own. And I'd pick up the guitar and I just started writing and I started playing, and I really just fell in love with that process of it. And the first time I decided, I was like, I'm going to go play at this open mic downtown. It was downtown LA. And they showed that there was an open mic there, and I just came in, and I didn't know that there's a difference between a music open mic and a comedy open mic night. So I showed up, and these guys are all doing comedy, and I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna do it. It was a heartbreak song I'm gonna do, and it just wasn't gonna fit. And I talked to the bartender. He's like, nah, dude, just do it, whatever. And it was one of those things. I was like, man, I said I was gonna come out here and do it, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do it. So. Yeah, I go up and I play this, from the heart, heartbreak song that I wrote. And the guy after me came up and he's like, man, that ain't nothing funny about that, but that's some good music right there, And so looking back, there was kind of comedy in the idea of taking a heartbreak song to a comedy open mic. But that kind of kicked it off for me. I mean, it was a fun process to be able, if you can go into a comedy open mic and be well received, you feel like, all right, maybe I can do something with this.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of cool, man.
Yeah, it was very fun. I always think about that. I'm like, I'll never forget that.
Like, straight sounds like something straight out of a movie, man.
Yeah.
You can see that. It's like, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's cool. So then, how did you just kind of just start trucking along from there? Or you like start doing more open mics, or?
Yeah, so I did, I looked into kind of the Sunset Strip circuit. You got like House of Blues down there and the kind of the pay to play type stuff, the Whiskey A Go Go.
Yeah. Kelly McGarry.
Yeah, exactly. You know. I can't even, I never remember that name, but that's I totally remember that now.
Yeah. We've done some stuff in Hollywood. We've done stuff with her and connected with her with House of Blues San Diego on some stuff too.
Okay, gotcha. Is she still doing all that, or is that?
I don't actually know for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a point where, we used it as, being in San Diego and trying to play in LA is not the easiest thing to do, and there's some routes you can take.
Yeah.
And some of them are trying to play with other bands and stuff like that, and that's usually route try to take. But at the time, you were trying to go, and then she just reached out.
Yeah.
As they do.
Yeah.
And it was like that type of thing. And she had offered us my old band, Goodnight Ravenswood.
Okay.
And it's a band I have I had with Kobe Lee Brooks. I don't know if you've seen him or
no.
He plays at the Vineyard every now and then.
Okay.
Great songwriter.
Gotcha.
Phenomenal singer and songwriter. And we had a band. And so she offered us a night like the Whiskey A Go Go, and we did like a headlining night there.
Nice.
And surprisingly, we sold a ton of tickets. It was one of those things. I don't know how we did that. But,
Did you do the pay to play thing, or was it like you had that kind of
yeah,
reputation
it
to be
was
able
like
to go?
a pay to. It was. I don't think we had to like meet a guarantee,
Okay.
but it was like one of those where they definitely got a. We sold them and they got a portion of it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of the. But then it kind of started spiraling more into that.
Yeah.
And then every time, and after a while, we're like, we don't really like. I don't really need you.
Yeah,
anymore.
no, that's kind of the. I did
Unfortunately,
feel like that because it was something to where you're like. I mean, for me, the pay to play thing was, you gotta sell like, you have 40 tickets you're given, and you got to sell 20.
Yep.
And then whatever you sell over that, you get to keep.
Yeah.
And it got to that point where I was like, I got to start playing other places, like I'm sure you did. And it's like you're like, I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
And there's different venues you can do where you'll just get paid.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah. And we've still done some of them, like Hotel Cafe is one.
I've always wanted to do that one. I've never gotten it.
That's a good one. You should still do it. It's a cool one. My band Wishing the Well, when we would go through, when we would like tour up the coast, we would usually try and book something there. Just because it's a small room. It's like a listening room. And so we would try to do some more of our like kind of songs that would lend to that. Yeah. And it's just a good spot where like, it's, the whole ticket thing wouldn't be too crazy. I can't remember if we even had to sell anything at all. But there was always people there. Yeah. And it didn't take much to fill the room, which was cool.
Totally.
So we would always kind of make that a stop. But yeah, other than that, it got pretty much kind of away from that. All the other bands that we've done stuff in LA beyond that have always been, hey, you're like, we'd love to book you something here in San Diego. Can you book us something, in LA? And that's cool. Kind of how we would do that. Because we find bands that were doing well there who are wanting to break out of LA. And so you can kind of just hitch your wagon onto them and kind of they do the same for you here.
Totally. Well, and that's what's so cool about it. I feel like the music community, especially out here and even in Nashville, I felt like when I would go out there, people are super cool about trying to help each other out. Because I feel like people understand that if somebody makes, I mean, it doesn't matter if somebody else makes it. It's not gonna kind of tarnish what you're doing or take away from you. Yeah. We all are just trying to make it and work. And I think if you help each other out, you get further that way rather than, hey, I'm not going to help you. I'm doing my thing. And we can all win. It's not a race or it's not like a competition in that.
Yeah. That is a huge philosophy I take even in business. And I look at that, my wife and I owned a coffee and tea shop here in town. And, and other businesses would come into the general area that you would think of as competition. I would try to constantly change my perspective to look at like, what? I hope that they kill it. I hope they're successful because all that's doing is making our neighborhood better. And if our neighborhood is becoming better, then we're all going to thrive.
Totally.
And, wishing ill will on them or trying to be like, well, I hope that I can take their business doesn't really get you very far in the long run. It might kind of in the short term. Yeah. But it never lasts and it's never something that's worthwhile. And I've found so in music, I've tried to kind of take that approach too, it's like, and I said this in a previous podcast too, is it's like, man, like you raise the water level, all the boats rise.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
And it's so that's kind of what I try to kind of navigate that too. Yeah. It's not always easy, but
no, and that's, I mean, it's just, you kind of have to constantly adjust your perspective on it. I mean, I can't be completely honest. Yeah, you see somebody else, especially in your same realm or genre or same kind of style of business, who's doing super, super well. You're like, shoot, man, like I really want to get on that. Like what's going on here? There's a little bit of that envy, but I think when you adjust your perspective and just go, man, if they're doing it, I can do it. And also I can learn something from them.
Absolutely.
And I think there's something to be said about helping each other and helping people. I truly believe that comes back around. Yeah, for sure.
And it's one of those things too, where there's a couple different ways that you can look at it in terms of like, I think it's a natural instinct to kind of have the thing to go, oh, man, like that should be me. Yeah. Or, or that could be me, whatever. Or feeling like, well, man, I've been out there doing this. I've been road dogging this thing and this person just showed up and whatever. Yeah. But another thing I learned too, and a lot like and I'll say this a lot, because a lot of what I've learned about approaching music, I've learned through being an entrepreneur and owning a business, and it
sure.
has taught me so much. And but like that, this other kind of principle that it really should just inspire you to want to be better. You know, and like just like in a business,
Absolutely.
where it's one of those things where someone comes in and you feel like oh man, they're doing really well. Like there's got to be a reason why they're doing really well. Something's speaking to the marketplace.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not just by happenstance. And so it's like, man, I got to step up.
Yeah.
I gotta figure out how to just be better.
Yeah.
And as I become better, what happens is I'll be more successful.
Yeah.
Because I think that when you kind of stand alone in your lane, you don't have to sometimes push as hard because
No.
you're alone in that lane. But as the lane starts to get more filled, it's like, all right, well, now how do I find my way to rise to the top?
Yeah.
And it's always from just pushing yourself to be better.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like,
and that's what's so cool is that, you know, you learn that for music or for business, you know, through that entrepreneurship and through having your own business. And that's kind of what I feel like I built from motocross, was the idea of that was, you know, you can go out there and run laps all day long by yourself, and you're only going to get kind of as good as you're going to get, you know, based on what you're doing. But you get out and you run, you know, you come down to Southern California from Montana, you see how fast everybody is here, and you get behind somebody and you kind of see that. You're like, same thing. You're like, dang, dude, that guy's going fast. How am I, like, that sucks. I should be going that fast. I've been riding every day. I've been doing all this, but you just get to that point where it's on you. You realize that. You realize it's, you know, it's nothing external. It's on you putting in the extra time, studying, seeing what's this guy doing, what are these other people doing that's bringing them success. And, you know, not having an ego to where you can't ask. You can't talk to somebody who's getting that and going, hey, like, what are you doing here? What are you doing there? Because I think that's, you know, the quickest way to success is learning, you know, not only from somebody else's success, but also mistakes too, and not being too high on your horse to be able to say, hey, yeah, you know what, maybe I won't go down that road, or I'm going to listen to what this person's telling me because they've been there. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, honestly, that learning from someone's mistakes is so much more valuable than almost learning from their successes.
True.
Honestly, and that's the thing that, you know, when I started Orange Blossom, and I started working with artists, my goal in that was really to be working with artists at the ground level, and recognizing that I'd gone through this X amount of times, and by this time I've learned some of those, and it was more than not science saying, hey, here's how to be successful, as much as it was, let me help you avoid X, Y, and Z, and let me help you dodge these things that you could potentially waste some time on.
Yeah.
And realizing that the value in that is, because time being one of the most important, you know, things that we have, is like, that's where you can learn from someone's mistakes. You're really just saving time. You're learning a way to just to save your time and use it to better spend it elsewhere.
Absolutely.
As opposed to being like, well, if you do this, this, and that, you're going to be successful. Because doesn't really work either.
No.
There isn't like a roadmap that looks like that, especially for music.
It's different for everybody.
Yeah, but if I can say, don't do this and don't do that and don't do that because it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a waste of money and it's not adequately spent. You know, hopefully you can be focusing on things that are going to put you in a better roadmap to find success, without having to point to it and say this is what it'll be.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been my goal with a lot of that.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Well, and that's a cool thing too, is, I mean, you just continue to learn through that process as well.
Yeah.
You know, that it's that kind of reiteration to yourself of what you've done and the different things you've navigated, and you can continue to evolve from that and watch other artists do that too. I mean, watch how they grow based on your help and see which direction they go, and
absolutely, and
how that goes. And that just, I think that just adds to your kind of your knowledge of the whole thing and how things change. I feel like the music industry, you know, continues to evolve, especially with streaming or things online, especially over the last year with like live streaming with shows that way. So it's just being able to still tap into even the younger generation that comes up and learn that stuff and help them, but also you're kind of learning too. So you continue to be able to help yourself as well.
Yeah, always trying to figure that out.
Yeah, ever changing for sure.
Yeah, always, man. That's always pivoting, always trying to find the new way or a better way, or or fix something that's broken along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been a fun process, kind of navigating that for sure. But yeah, so we kind of went off a little bit, but. No, which is great. I love that.
We probably will keep doing that. You do a little bit of tequila and beer over here. We're gonna have a good time talking about a little bit of everything.
Yeah. But I'm trying to timeline it. So we started talking about like the whole pay to play. So you started playing, like doing some of the Sunset Strip gigs, some of that.
Yes. So that was kind of the beginning of all that, and it was super. I've been always just so blessed to have super supportive friends in my life who show up, and it's just that kind of, I've been just super grateful for that. And that's where I was bartending at a place called Mixology 101 out in LA. And that's just definitely a huge stamp on the timeline for me. It was just such an incredible time, and I met so many amazing people there.
How long were you doing that?
I was at Mixology for probably, I think 3.5 years, but then I would bartend several other places. You got 2 or 3 bartending jobs out there. But that was just one of the main things I always remembered. I just grew such a tight knit group of friends out there, artists and people who were just insanely talented. And that was kind of where that whole thing, as far as assisting each other, helping each other out, supporting each other, I really saw that in full force there. And that was where like my first gig at Whiskey A Go-Go was probably 5 or 6 months after I moved to LA, and probably a few months after the Comedy Store comedy open mic stop.
Yeah.
And I made sure, hey, this is a music thing, right? It's not comedy, and we were good there. So I had all these I had the 40 tickets, and I was bartending, and told my friends. I think I was bar backing at the time. I wasn't quite even a bartender yet, but I told people at the bar there, and the bartenders and my server friends and everybody would be like, they would start telling patrons and stuff, hey, this guy's got a show. You want $10? Here you go. Here's a ticket. Hey, Sammy, where's your tickets at? Hey, I got you. This guy's coming. These guys are coming. And it was so cool because, I was just green. I got there. I was young. I was 21, and I was just like, I felt kind of excited but lost. I didn't know how to navigate it, but I just knew, hey, I got to go play. I got to get out. And so and that was there. And then later on that year, I played at House of Blues, and I also played at Whiskey A Go-Go again that year. And it was all the pay to play type stuff. And I just I got to a point where towards the end of the year, I was like, you know what? And I think I just said it one night at the bar to one of my bartender buddies. I was like, hey, I'm gonna do a tour next year. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm going to just book some shows and drive across the country and see what happens. He goes,
no way.
Hell yeah, man. Like, let's go. Yeah. That's awesome. And it was something to where I've always thought, if I just tell somebody I'm going to do something, I know I gotta do it.
I do the same thing, man. That's how I work stuff out.
Yeah.
I just start talking about it.
Yeah.
I start talking about it, and as I talk about it, I slowly work it together, and I piece it together, even though it's not together at all.
Yeah, not at all.
It's like that.
I haven't even thought of it.
100%. I love that you mentioned that, because that's totally a thing that I do.
Well, and it works. It really does, because if you, if you place any importance on, your word as far as what you say and standing by that, then I feel like you're going to figure it out. Some version of it. It probably will never be this exactly what you thought it was. 100, 200 people in the crowd. It's like on that first tour, I think. It was just the owner and some bartender were there, and they were just stoked to have somebody there, So it may never work out exactly the way that you plan it, but I think most of the time it works out better. It's just, you just learn from it. But that's what it was. I was so like,
what was
hey.
that? I'd love to hear, what was that like? So like, were you just out, just on your own? You bring like your own PA?
Well, no. So that was, I didn't even have any of that yet. I had nothing. I had this whole idea. So my dad and I, I was going to do it with my dad. We were going to call it the 2-wheel tour. So this was going to be, I was going to take my motorcycle. He was going to take his, and we were going to travel across the country and just play. I was going to play gigs, and he was just going to roll with me just because it'd be
No
fun. My
way.
pops and I do kind of a motorcycle trip every year. So I was like, hey, let's do this time. He's like, all right, like I'm there. Let's figure it out. And so it was probably December or January of 2015, January 2015. I kind of planned it out for like April, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to start picking places, and I wanted to head up to Montana. So I knew the route I wanted to go. And I was looking at, bigger venues and whatnot. I wasn't getting anywhere. I was emailing and calling, hundreds of places. And I was like, maybe I should just try some smaller towns. And it really, that's where it was. People dug the idea of
Like, how'd you get our number?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, well, Google's crazy. I had to go down quite the deep into the wormhole there to figure out where these places were. And I would just like zoom in on Google Maps and go bars in the area, and you'd find some mom and pop place that they've been there for a while. And it was such a fun process. It was something that, it took until April to get 10 shows. It was like I called and emailed hundreds of people and didn't get back from some canceled, or some, were like, who the hell are you? You're coming from California. What do I care? But most people were super stoked on it. They were like, just having somebody come from LA and with their dad on a motorcycle is a cool kind
That's
of
super cool.
I tried to make it as sellable as possible, you know? And so we did. I got it all set up, and I had 2 shows set up for Montana to finish it off. So I'd go back to my hometown and play there.
Yeah.
And the final show was at a place called Bert and Ernie's, which was where my mom, I remember the name growing up as a kid. My mom, they're going to play at Bert and Ernie's. They're going to Bert and Ernie's. And so for me, that was like a huge just nostalgia thing, and a cool kind of coming together of worlds between my mom and my aunt and I, people who've played there from when I was a kid. So, but going back, obviously we had it all planned out. And I was in LA, and I was riding to work one day on my motorcycle, and somebody kind of came out, and there was a truck in the way. It definitely wasn't necessarily the other guy's fault, but technically it was.
Right.
So he came out, and he just kind of stopped in the middle of the road, and this was like, I was 20 feet, and so I slammed on the brakes and kind of ditched the bike because I was sliding into it sideways, and I jumped off, and it basically, it just piled right into the side of this car.
Wow.
And I ended up in the oncoming traffic lane. And luckily I jumped off because the whole right side of the bike was what hit that car. So, that would have taken my leg or something in that realm. And then nobody was coming in oncoming traffic. And I was banged up. I took the ambulance ride in, and they checked me all out, and I was good. But it was, the bike was pretty much done. It wasn't going to be ready for that. So that was kind of a weird thing to navigate. I felt like, I got to call all these people and say, hey, we're still coming. We're just going to be coming in a car. So, 2 wheels for me, 2 wheels for my dad. We can still call it the 2-wheel tour. And nobody cared. To me though, it was like, oh man, I'm playing this chopper bar.
Yeah.
It's called Chopper John's in Arizona. I'm like, they're not going to want me anymore. I'm not coming with the bikes. And they're like, no, dude, come on by, And so it was another, just one of those, things that I had it all planned out in my head the way it was going to go. And that was like a week before we were going to leave. And it changed up, but it was, we went through several rainstorms on the way. So that kind of worked out better that we took the car.
Yeah, I imagine.
But no, it was amazing. It was my dad and I, and we just had such a blast together going bar to bar. And everybody buying you drinks, everybody wants to know the story, where you're from, what you're doing. And there were some small towns where it was a big deal. It was a big deal to have somebody coming through. So it was very a super humbling and cool experience though, to feel like, man, this is something that you kind of dream about, but and you could sit around and wait to get a record deal or to have somebody book you. But I thought, man, I'm just going to figure it out. We'll come up with something. And it was kind of all over the place, but it worked out. We played some shows, and it was just, such an experience. Yeah. Such a blast.
Well, man, I almost every band that I love, that's same. It's similar in them saying that. It's like, I knew I had to go out and play.
Yeah.
I knew I couldn't wait for someone else to come clear the path for me. I just had to go start going. And start on my own.
Yeah.
Just showing up. I'm gonna do this thing. I'll play for tips.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'll play for nothing.
Exactly.
Whatever. And just the opportunity to do it, and then the repetition of coming back and like that thing, and then after some time being like, oh man, now I was able to do it. These people know me. I know I can have people there. Now they're gonna pay me. Now I can bring a band.
Yeah.
Or maybe I can only bring 2 people.
Yeah.
That's all I can afford this one. So I'm gonna do kind of a acoustic, but more instruments. And then next time I can bring a full band.
Yeah.
And then next, it's like, man, I love hearing that. 'Cause I mean, I'm a huge believer that hitting the road and just doing it and grinding it out.
Yeah.
And just honestly, but it's kind of it takes a certain degree of willingness
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah.
And, because it's one thing to say that I want to go play music. It's another thing to be like, I've navigated a situation where I've cleared myself out for 2 weeks. I'm going to go hit the road.
Yeah.
I've saved my money. I've done X, Y, and Z. I've spent 4 months booking these places and doing all that.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to go do it. And that's been a hard thing. I see that's the spot where I feel like a lot of people hit.
For sure.
At the ground level, for sure, of like being that thing of like how they break through and getting to that spot to be able to go, man, I'm gonna go out and start playing for people.
Yeah.
And it's rad that like to be going from I'm gonna go do these open mics and kind of navigating that in LA and be like, I'm gonna go hit the road.
Yeah. No, it was like I said, it's just an experience, and it's something. It's just kind of, I think you gotta, obviously, as cliche as it sounds, just believe in yourself and just go, I can figure, if anybody's done it, you can do it. It just comes down to that, being able to see if somebody else has done this, then I should be able to do it. And it's like we talked about, talking that, speaking that into existence. I truly believe in that. I believe in hard work gets you there, and that work ethic, and you got to have some luck on your side too, for sure. And but I think that's another cool thing, is I've had that experience, and people have asked me about it and talked about it, and it's just like, that's where I can say, just go do it. You'll be fine. You'll have a blast. You know what I mean? It's not going to turn out the way you think it's going to.
Yeah.
It's going to be very, very hard, but you will love it. And like you said, just getting out on the road, just meeting people from different places, and you just learn so much about not only other people, but yourself, and that we're all kind of, we're all just trying to chase something in life and do something and have some fun regardless of our different beliefs or different ideas. Like, we're all just trying to figure it out as we go. So that's why I say, it's always just like, if you have an idea and you want to do something, just do it. You could crash and burn, but you're going to learn a whole lot more than just sitting on the fence the whole time. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Amen to that.
Yeah.
So you went and did, was it 10 days there, or was it 10 days round trip?
It was 2 weeks altogether, I think, from what I remember. So we did a night. It was probably about 10 days actually. We did the night each spot. And then we got to Great Falls, Montana, my hometown, and we stayed there for probably 4 or 5 days. And then we just cruised right back in a couple nights. So we played, I played a show in LA before I left. And then I played out in Barstow, which was such a cool time. There just a ton of servicemen and women there, military folks, and super supportive of it. I mean, they were tossing just crazy tips. They were just like, they knew what we were doing, and they were super helpful and super, super awesome.
Yeah.
So that was just an experience, and we just had a blast. I mean, we're playing all night, and played longer than I planned, and playing with different people who were there, and so that was fun. And then we went up through Arizona. We went to Phoenix, and that's where that chopper bar was that we played, and that was a cool spot. Played in Utah, Wyoming, and I think that's when we ended up after that up in Montana. So it was interesting. And I mean, we camped some places, we stayed in hotels other places, and then obviously stayed with family up in Montana. But I wouldn't wouldn't trade it for the world. Got to do a little chat with the local newspaper in Great Falls, which was cool. I mean, to be able to be in the newspaper in your hometown to me was just
Yeah.
like, it was all a dream. I mean, it was just something that you try and come up with in your head how the first tour is going to go. How's this first interview going to go, or anything like that. And it never, it wasn't as glamorous as maybe you thought it always was going to be, but it was just so much more real and interesting and fun.
Nice. So how long, when you coming back from that, how long were you in LA before you made your way down this way?
I was there for another couple years. So I did another, like, that fall of 2015, I did another little tour just by myself in my car, and just basically slept in the car, and then stayed with family in Nashville and came back. And then
so you went all the way to Nashville and back.
Yeah, on the
nice.
second one, yeah, which was super. It was just such a blast to get out there and see. I mean, that's just everybody there. Everybody's good.
Yeah,
everybody's insanely talented and great, and very helpful. Like we were talking about. I didn't have
not like LA.
No, yeah, I mean, not to say it's not. I mean, in my experience, as far as just friends go, are super helpful and supportive.
Right.
But I have felt definitely,
industry-wise,
it's very competitive, and people, you know, you got to be.
They hold their chips close. And,
yes, 100%. And I definitely felt that completely opposite about Nashville, because when I would email or try and get in touch with anybody on social media, they were like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, come on in, come sit in. I got this, I got that. Come sit in."
Yep.
Like, people are super supportive there, and they all really, because it's the same thing. If you win, I win. If we're in that same realm together, and I see you doing well, I know I'm on the right track. And it is just about giving back and that coming back around too.
Yeah.
So I definitely felt that right when I got there. Everybody was, they were all incredibly supportive, and would point you in the right direction to even another gig or another open mic or anything like that.
I've heard that countless times. I have lots of friends that have kind of done similar things, where they just go out and doing a tour, whether it's band or solo or duo or whatever. And I always hear that they're super helpful, and they're like, "Hey, we don't have a thing here, but let me give you 3 contacts for a place you should hit up."
Exactly.
And they'll kind of like dial you in like that. And my experience there too, man, is it's such a friendly spot. I love Nashville. Not just because I love country music, but it's just everyone there's so nice.
Yeah.
And you come back and people remember.
Yep.
And all kinds of. I just can't. I mean, just the most welcoming.
Yeah.
Experience.
No, I totally agree. Couldn't agree more. And that's where, I see myself hopefully there someday. It's it's a process getting out there and making that happen. You're going to a really big, saturated area as far as talent and people go. But it's just, just even aside from the music, like you said, just great people, great energy out there, great environment, and just a cool place to be.
Yeah. And
so that's where I have an aunt and uncle who just moved out of there, but they were there. I got a cousin who plays there a ton, so I still, that's kind of where I went when I went back there. That was where I was going to hit, was Nashville, and hang out there for a little bit and play the open mics and whatnot. And that was, that really just kept that fire going for sure. I was like, all right, well, I know I'm on the right track. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then the following year, I kind of ended up back there in 2016. My good friend Justin and I, we did like a joint comedy music tour.
Oh, wow.
So we called it the Choose Love Tour. This was kind of maybe like my one of my hippie years out living in LA. I grew my hair out and just was like, you know what, man, I'm just gonna cruise this year. I'm gonna enjoy everything in the moment and really just go with the flow and see what happens. And it was something. Him and I were like, let's go to New York. Let's just drive. Let's go. We just both bartended at this place. We saved up a good amount of money. We said, let's take off for 3 weeks and just go do this thing. So we, he would book some comedy shows and I booked some music shows along the way. And we drove all the way across to Nashville and then up to New York and then back across kind of the northern states, back down through Vegas and back. And it was I mean, we were driving most of the time. We probably could have done it a little better, but we had a blast. That was a lot of fun. And to see him kind of the other side of it, we'd go to comedy shops and everywhere we went, people were the same way, very supportive. And we'd kind of point you in the direction of where to go if there was a town where he was doing comedy and I didn't have anything. Like, oh, if you got music, go over here, go here.
Interesting. So you guys weren't doing you guys weren't trying to play the same venues?
No.
At first, I'm trying to figure that out.
I learned that the first time I played a comedy store or comedy shop is I'm probably not going to do that again. No. So I didn't preface that. We kept it separate. And he did his thing and I do my thing. But
I've seen that. I've been to some, granted, I mean, some like pretty large comedy shows. Yeah. And like a lot of times they'll have like a musical artist kind of open.
Totally.
And stuff like that. That's why I was kind of curious. I'm like, dang, I wonder if they're like trying to like.
Yeah, no, not quite as cool as that. But yeah, no, I mean, we had a blast though. I mean, it was, we get some people from maybe a music show be like, hey, yeah, he's going to go do a comedy show over here. Oh yeah, dude, awesome. Because one of us would be kind of chatting with folks in the crowd or whatever. Yeah, that's my buddy up there. And just a really cool experience. I mean, for both of us to go do that. He's a super talented dude. He's an actor in LA.
Okay.
And just one of the funniest guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah,
for
still
sure.
doing comedy?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, he hasn't done as much stand up, but I mean, he does, improv stuff and whatnot and goes through that. But, no, I mean, we had a blast on that trip and it was kind of after that. I mean, as far as getting down here, it was a total whirlwind of things. I think I got back and, I was kind of doing the hippie thing and just kind of going with the flow, but I knew I was like, I really want to, level up, do something else, do something to help people. And I think maybe from that hippie mind state of making a difference, I knew I wanted to do music still, but I knew that I wanted to do, something else other than bartending. And, I kind of was looking into, we had a family friend, who was a highway patrolman, and my stepdad retired as a sheriff, and I was kind of looking into that, and my stepdad goes, I think you should just be a firefighter. I'm like, why's that? He goes, everybody likes a firefighter, not everybody likes a cop, And I mean,
foreshadowing for the years to come.
Oh yeah, no, and I mean, I have so much respect for servicemen and women, people, police and sheriffs and cops. It's crazy. I mean,
it's a tough job.
Yeah, for sure. And I, more power to them. And I have, a huge respect for that and what my stepdad did as far as his service and what everyone's doing right now, And so it's, shout out to those folks. I dig what the good ones are doing. I know a lot of them working as a firefighter now, so it did end. It worked out. Yeah, my stepdad steered me in the right direction, but that was something. Yeah, I mean, I was like, yeah, that sounds great, and I knew I'm super into hiking and nature and whatnot, and the wildland firefighters are out there doing that all the time. I mean, they're getting their butts kicked, but they're out there in it, and so that's kind of where I knew I wanted to do that, and a really good friend of mine who I live with now, and we're both firefighters. David, he's like, yeah, dude, I think I'm going that route too. And we both, I ended up moving down to Anaheim from LA, and we both moved into a spot down there and found a fire academy there, which is 13 weeks of hell. and we both went through that together, and we both ended up working for an ambulance company out there in Anaheim. And then I found my way back. I was staying at my folks for a little while in Temecula, and then got hired on my current department, which my friend David was hired on with as well, prior to me getting there. And that kind of finally brought me to the beginning of this year, which was him and I were both like, hey, let's move in together again. We're at the same spot. And that brought me to Oceanside. And so that's just kind of one of those wild meant to be type things. I feel like you get to a certain point in life where you're like, man, I mean, how many times I wanted to give up on the fire thing, and how many times I've wanted to give up on the music thing and different things. And you get, you just, one of those things where you say, hey, I'm going to do it. So you're just going to follow through with it. And you just got to trust that intuition. And I couldn't, I can't I can't say that I had any of the idea of the way this worked out in my mind. Like I said before,
Yeah.
You can look at it any way you want, but it's never going to turn out the way you think it's going to. And I think it's turned out better for sure.
Rad.
So
Love hearing that.
yeah.
How is so where are you working as a firefighter?
It's called the Rincon Fire Department's out near Valley Center.
Okay.
So
is that what are they affiliated with? Is that like a city fire department, or
yeah,
is
it's
it
kind
like
of rural. It's
so
a rural fire department out there.
Okay.
So it's more, we get traffic collisions and different things
Yeah.
like that, bigger things going on there.
Yeah.
But it's no, it's a great place. It's a one station department, so smaller spot. But no, we got such a great group of people there. I mean, all the way to, our chief is super adamant about taking really good care of us and us being safe. Even our admin, she's an incredible person who takes really good care of us as well. And it's just like a family. I mean, it is really, that's the way it is. And they're all guys who have come to the shows and brought people to the shows and those type of people that you surround yourself with that just want make yourself want to be better.
I've always loved that. I have a lot of good friends that are both police officers and firefighters. But firefighters in particular, I've always seen that as that it's one of those things where it kind of becomes a family to some degree, and also that like they're always so incredibly supportive.
Yeah.
Always coming out with their families and all that, coming out in groves, it seems like.
Yeah.
Which is cool. But as a firefighter, one of the things that's rad is it's a really hard job when you're on it and out there, obviously being.
I know you can say you get a lot of time off.
But no, I'm saying that. No, but
exactly.
But I was saying the perks, the other side. Like being in California, there's a lot of fucking fires. Like there's like you get put to work. I know that you've had to cancel gigs because you'd have to hit me. You'd hit me up. Be like, man, hey, I know I'm booked later this week, but fires are hitting hot. I don't know if I'm gonna be back.
Yeah.
Or like, hey, I'm just gonna be stuck out here for another week. Whatever.
Yeah.
And but I would say that. But the other side of it is it's cool because you do it. It does seem like that you get to have some of that freedom. Like obviously when you're on.
Yeah.
But the flexibility to have like being able to have time off and being able to have blocked time and stuff like that. It lends to positioning yourself as a musician to like, man, like what a cool job to have that takes care of you and also fulfills you in doing what you want to do and taking care of other people.
Yeah.
Which is such an admirable thing. And I mean, from me personally, like I thank people like you for your service and that.
Totally.
It's such a rad thing. But then also, I mean, as a musician, it's like, man, that's such a cool opportunity to be able to know that, hey, I have this time off. I know I can plan it. Heaven forbid, unless there's a fire that calls me. But just the opportunities to be able to take the time and to still do the things that you really want to do. Yeah.
No, and that was a huge pull for me, obviously, was being able to help people. And like, like we're saying, it's that the way the scheduling works is just awesome. So generally you work for like 4896 is what we work at my station. So you work your 2 days on and then 4 days off. Mm-hmm. And that's barring, I mean, of course, if I got guys who've been on fires for 21 days, and stuff like that. So it's depending on what's going on, you could be, held over and work that extra time. So, and you understand that, especially with this certain time of year, you're like, well, I know I'm not going to really plan too much around this time of year because of that.
Yeah.
Which is California. It just seems like it's getting more and more, but
also let's not braze over the side that being on for 21 days is 21 days of getting paid.
Yeah. Oh, of course. No, totally. Absolutely. No, the guys they don't complain. We're grateful.
Yeah.
It's kind of a tough thing, because you're like, you're grateful for that, but you're also like, you're trying to end this thing. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of a weird place to be in, but it's, you don't want that to keep going. But of course, if anybody's going to do it, shoot. Yeah, let's go do it. I'll go do it. And of course, it's an incredible job, and it's something that I've been on just over a year now, so I'm still super new to it, and I haven't done a percentage of what a lot of the guys there have done or had to go through, and so it's something I every day am being able to see and look up to people there and learn from, and
Yeah.
just be grateful for them and their experience to help teach me. So it's something that, you know, I'm still earning your stripes in that way. You know,
Yeah.
you're still kind of still green, still learning, but very grateful for it. Grateful to be able to give back to a community and do that with like-minded people and learn from those people who've been through, you know, wild stuff and who've done wild stuff. So it's definitely an experience, and it is something cool where you're going to have, I'm going to get those days off to be able to travel or go do gigs and make stuff happen.
Well, the other side of that too, like, you know, talking about the financial side of it too, is it being one of those things where, you know, the overtime and all those things, like music is not a cheap endeavor.
No.
And unfortunately, people who approach it in that way usually don't succeed often.
Exactly.
Just because there's a lot of components, you know, there's a lot to fund if you want to really push it and do it well.
Yeah.
So that's why I always look to that. And that's one of the things I tell people all the time too, is when people, you know, we're talking about how do I plan to achieve this thing or that thing, you know? And I always start with, how do you adjust your life to put you in a position to do those things?
Yeah.
Like, how do you, because you have to make a living, and how are you gonna, you know, what expenses can you cut out to make your living situation financially easier?
Yeah.
So that you can save money to be able to go away for a month,
Yeah.
to go travel for 3 weeks,
Exactly.
and do that, to fund the record that you keep talking about wanting to do, all those things. It's
Yeah.
like, and that starts with, you know, there's a couple different routes you can take in that.
Yeah.
You can find a job that makes great money and lends you the time, or you can find ways to cut things out of your life so you don't have to make as much money.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like there's you know, so many different ways that you can kind of do it, but at the end of the day, it's still the same goal or the same thing that you need to kind of conquer.
Yeah.
And because it's like, if you're approaching music and you have, you know, a huge car payment, and you have a house that you can't afford, and you have drinking habits and eating habits that, you know, you're wasting all this money on, and then you're like, man, like, well, I want to go record, and like, but like the band, like they all want, like I can't afford to hire this person or that person, and I can't afford to go like record as many songs as I really wanted to do, or, you know, and they try to pin it on, like, why are these app people asking so much, or why is this so expensive? And it's like, it's actually the same across the board for everyone. It's just you haven't positioned yourself to be able to afford it.
Exactly. No,
You know?
it's about choices, and it's about discipline and sacrifice, for sure. I mean, and that's where, and that was going back, and that's something, I mean, going back to wanting to quit working on going towards the fire service, was I was having to sacrifice music for a while. I wasn't able to play out. I was, you know, locked into, especially during the academy, it was just like, that was it. And it was hard. It was really hard. I can, you know, I can definitely tell that I get a little off when I don't get to kind of feed that side of it, right? And play music and express yourself in that way. And so that went back to that, and I did. I mean, I had to have, you know, I don't think I was ever going to quit, but I did have people go, hey, you know, I'd say, man, this is tough. Like, I want to play music. Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And it's like, you're doing this so you can. Yeah. You're doing this so you can. And that's, you know, I had my best friend David, who would always tell me that, and he's super supportive of the music and everything. But you know, he's also a realist in that. You know, you have to make those sacrifices to make it work, and that's really what it's afforded me. Is, I mean, getting on with the fire service and having that stability has given me the ability to produce more music. And that's what kind of happened this year, is I was able to work with an incredible producer out in LA. Raz, he goes by Hamster. He's awesome. I got to work with him several years back, but I just never had the funds to do my own projects. And this year I was able to, and I put out, you know, it's music that I'm super proud of and super excited to show people. And you know, stuff that can be played live and have a good time with. So, you know, it just goes back to that, making those sacrifices and, learning from other people's mistakes, and when you're sitting there going, I can't do it, I don't know how to do it, chat with people who have, and you will find that they cut stuff out and they made sacrifices and did tough things to do it.
Yeah, and it's not always the funnest thing to hear.
No, it sucks to hear it.
Yeah,
but it's that's the hard truth for sure.
But taking what'd you say it was 13 months in the academy?
Oh, 13 weeks.
13 weeks.
So yeah, but I mean
yeah.
even before that, prepping for it, after that, working on an ambulance and then getting through, your first year as a firefighter too is all just a part of that really focused process that doesn't allow too much of extracurricular.
I've seen that with
things.
Friends who have gone through that too, where it's a definitely very focused time.
Yeah.
But again, it's a short thing
in the grand scheme of things, for sure,
of what it's going to allow you.
Looking back
later.
now, it is. Back then, it was like, oh, what am I doing with my life? And it's like, dude, it's like a year or two. Just chill out. And now I'm like, you see it when hindsight's 20/20.
Absolutely,
for sure.
It's really hard. It's hard to dial that in sometimes.
Yeah,
I know that for myself too. It's hard to have that mentality for, down the road. But again, going back, like business is another one that's taught me that, man.
Yeah,
is that the great things aren't built overnight, and it's a long game. And and success, what I find a lot too is like really it comes down to like, how thick's your skin? Are you gonna, how far are you willing to run? And it's not always about running till you've ultimately succeeded. It's the fact that sometimes you've just outrun everyone else.
Yeah, I like that. That's true.
And and that's kind of what it takes. That mentality is that even if because you might not even see the light, but it's just one of those things where I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep plugging on because I know that there's something like at the end of it. It's coming. And like just even talking about this, I went through this with my wife when we had our shop, and we went through hell and back. We were not in a place to be opening that business.
Yeah.
We had stumbled upon this location, downtown Oceanside, which is like right in the neighborhood I grew up on. And we were getting ready to tackle. We're gonna go do online. We're gonna be all e-commerce, easy peasy, like just money in the bank. We're gonna figure that out. And then we stumbled on this location that's in basically my neighborhood, and we're like, oh my God, we should put a shop here. We didn't have the money to do that.
Yeah.
We just had an idea, and I somehow convinced our landlord, or the landlord who had the space. There's probably like 30 people that were trying to get in that spot. All of them were way more qualified for us. And and he's like, you guys don't have the money in your bank account to do the things that you are telling me you're going to do. And I was like, it's not for you to worry about.
Yeah.
All you gotta do
we're gonna do it.
You just tell me yes.
Yeah.
I'll make it happen. And am I ever sorry that I said that? Because at the end of the day, he ended up giving us the green light on it. And it took us a year, and a fuck ton of money that we didn't have.
Yeah.
And almost killed us, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And we opened our business with, basically no money in our account.
Yeah.
Actually, I was just telling someone this story today. The day that we opened, because we were talking to someone today who's going through it right now with a business, and they're dealing with the health department. And we were telling them that we scheduled our fire inspection and our health department inspection the same day. Fire inspection just ahead of the health one, and we planned to open that night. We were doing a friends and family opening.
Okay.
And we basically the health inspector came in and gave us the green light. Health inspector walked out the door, and we were sitting there, and we're like, so we're like ready to open.
So we're doing
Someone
it.
walked by and they popped their head in, like, are you guys open? We just kind of looked at each other and went, yep. That was it.
Yeah.
But rewind like a day prior, we were at Costco trying to buy all the stuff that we needed to make for the weekend, for the paper cups and all this stuff like that. And we're sitting there and we have all this stuff in our cart. And I remember having a thought like, all right, we should look at our bank account really quick. And I on my phone pull it up, and it's like $760 something in our bank account to our name.
Yeah.
Like
that
was it.
Jeez.
And I started looking at the cart, and I'm like, we got to pull some stuff out, and just to clear it.
Yeah.
And it was one of those where like, we don't have a choice now.
Yeah.
Like failure is not an option because literally we've put everything, we moved into a 4-bedroom house at this point so we can rent out 3 of the rooms.
Wow.
So that way we had a place to live because it was like, we couldn't afford to really pay our own rent.
Yeah.
Because we just put $100,000 of money we didn't have into this business that we were already having to pay back to someone, and it was after a year of doing that essentially. And then, but it was just that thing. And it was just like, boom. And it was, we were going through this for, and everyone says the first 2 years and fucking shit, were they right?
Yeah.
Dude, 2 years of, 12-hour days, 4 days a week, and then 8-hour days, the other 3 days, whatever it was. And, paying our employees and trying to figure out what we were gonna, and on top of that, playing music, and music being the only thing that was kind of keeping us sane, me sane. But I remember going back kind of what we're talking about is that I'm saying all this to paint a picture, to put it so you can understand when I say this. My wife, I was just head down and just be like, we gotta just keep going.
Yeah.
We don't have a choice. Gotta keep going. And I remember her, she's like, I can't, like, how long is it going to be like this? Like, I can't do this forever.
Yeah.
And I would just always say, like, because we go through periods where just be like, and she would just be like, because at this time too, she was working 6 days a week at our markets, and she was doing all of our blending and all of our fulfillment. And it was basically just her and I and a couple employees at the shop, and the 2 employees we had at the shop. But she was running everything with the back end of the business and all that. And, we're just working nonstop. And then, and she's like, I just can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. Like, it's just around the corner. It's just around the corner. And it's that same mentality. I'm saying that, but I don't really know.
No,
because I don't really know where it is. I just know that if we keep going, it's gonna come.
Yeah.
If we just keep, we just got, and it's like, make it to next week, make it to next week, make it to next week, make it to next week. And it's like for 5 years, basically, and it's like,
yeah.
And granted, it was like that, we had some points where things started to turn, and slowly we got to that, and then eventually we got to a spot where it was like, okay, we built something that runs itself, and we paid off our debt, and we ended up partnering with someone who came along who was basically going to be able to take us to the next level. And then, and then we did end up selling the space, and it's like, we're in a spot now that we've never been in before. I have had the most freedom I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
It's but going back to that, it was like, that was always the mentality.
Yeah.
Like, that was never the end goal.
No.
That was just part of the story to get to kind of the area we are now, to have the freedom to do the things that I really want to do.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't really want to work 70 hours a week doing that.
No.
But it's that same mentality of saying, if I just keep going, if I just see to the end of it,
yeah,
I know I'm going to get to the spot where I'm going to get to do all the things that I want to do, that fulfill me. And this is going to be the avenue that I'm going to get to do it.
Yeah.
But you don't get to that spot without going through it.
No,
and
that's that discipline.
Yeah.
That's that sacrifice that you guys made. And I think it's, like you said, you don't really have that end goal, because there's never going to be that end.
Right.
There never really is. It's just trying to make it work, be successful, and just being a part of that process. And it sounds like, shh, you put it in, and it's like, you can look back now and go, wow. I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen, but it turned out. Yeah. It turned out all right.
Turned out great.
Yeah.
I mean, but it turned out great. But I'm one of those people where you make it great.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does. You said it. It takes a little. There's a little bit of luck involved, but but there's also the side that is just, you willed it, like, not willed it in the sense of like, in like a spiritual way.
No, you willed it. You put the freaking work in.
It's
you
like
put the work in.
Yeah, and it is one of those where, especially in music, and again, going back to, like, that's why, and again, and that's the other side of this, like, man, doing that was such like a PhD course in just so many life lessons, and through being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, and learning how to navigate something start to finish.
Yeah.
And all those things that I learned in that, and now folding them over into what I do in music with bands that I'm involved with, or and especially with people I work with in more of a producer role, or like kind of helping them manage what they're doing. It's like, man, all that stuff, and I have to, my mentor, good friend, Dayton Hicks, who, I watched him do the same thing, and through their business, I watched everyone call him crazy, and all these things, and because he would just, and similarly, he would talk things into existence almost,
Yeah.
but like crazy stuff, and he's all doing the thing. He's done everything he said he's going to do.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because now when I talk to him and the things he's talking about doing, and I'm just like laugh, because I'm like, you do everything you say you're gonna do, and so like, this is things you're talking about are scary.
You see the work. You see the work, right?
Saw it, and
Yeah.
I met him at a pivotal time in my life
Yeah.
where I had a career. I had a career job. I had a job I had been working at, and I was working my way up. I busted my ass to work up, and I'd bought a house and done all these things at a young age, and I went through some circumstances where basically the rug kind of got pulled out from under me, and we were playing in a band together at a time, that band Goodnight Ravenswood, and we were playing a band together at that time, and I was going through that, and I remember the rug kind of getting pulled out from under me, and I'd lost my house, and then I lost my job, and it was one of these, and he's just like, congratulations. I was like,
what the hell?
Yeah,
thanks
you,
a lot, dude.
Yeah. And he's like, he's like, he's like, that was you were living a really safe life. It was really safe. You probably could have been just fine. He's like, but you wouldn't have been content.
Yeah.
And he said, you were not meant for safe.
For sure.
And he's like, you would have been miserable 10 years from now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, it's because the wounds are still fresh too.
Yeah, you're like,
come on, man.
I just got here, man.
But it was like one of the most powerful conversations that changed the trajectory of my life and changed the way that I looked at things, because and he was 100% right. I was living a very safe, very successful, safe life situation that was like the thing that a lot of people dream to have.
Yeah.
And it was one of those that, but deep down, I think I knew too that it wasn't, that safety net wasn't the thing that was going to feed me.
Exactly.
And not feed me food on the table, but feed me
feed your soul.
My soul. And what, I just knew it. And he was right. I wasn't meant for that. I wasn't meant to do that. And so I've gone to him in every, so when we were getting ready to open that shop, and I was like that thing, and I was getting ready to say no. I was ready to do the thing that was like, all the realistic things say this is a dumb idea.
Yeah.
And I remember going to him and being like, dude, he's like, you got to do it. He knew he knew what I was going to learn in that process.
Yeah.
And then I remember when I came to him the first time, I told him, I was like, hey, I think we're going to sell this space. He said, you absolutely should sell it. I remember being like,
like, okay,
what the fuck? Dude, you're the one that told me. He's like, I know. And he's like, yeah, he's like, but this is, he's like, that's not, he's like, you think you're going to do that? You're just going to do that forever?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, he's like, you got everything you needed to get out of that.
He's your guru, man.
Dude.
Like, he's just like super kind of mysterious. Like, no, you should. And you're like, wait a minute, you just told me to buy a thing, and no, you learned what you needed to learn. Now you move on to the next thing. And you're like, oh, shoot, man.
I'll introduce you to this cat. It all makes sense.
That's cool.
Yeah, but he totally is. He's totally like that. And yeah, like I said, he's definitely someone that I look to for inspiration. In that he's they run a business that's in the music business. It's they're a warehouse company and distribution.
Okay.
And they do distribution for like Live Nation and Warner Brothers and all that.
Dang.
But they started when I met them. It's him and his brothers.
Yeah.
The Hicks boys.
Okay.
They had a surf brand. It's called Wendigo Surfboards.
Okay.
And they had this little surf shop in downtown Carlsbad called Seaworthy. And they had a warehouse space that they were kind of, they were warehousing for a bunch of random stuff, and it's like they just started evolving, and I watched them basically living out of the warehouse with no vehicles,
Yeah.
going, like living a pretty gnarly situation for a bunch of grown ass men.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that and being like, dude, these guys are fucking crazy. Cannot believe, because
Yeah.
again, coming from like living this thing where I was like, I have all of this stuff and I'm doing
good.
this thing.
Yeah, I'm
and I'm
chilling.
like, well, you guys are crazy.
Yeah.
And but watching the sacrifice that they took for years and how many, hits they took on the head, and watching, them almost have the door shut multiple times.
Yeah.
And but watching them come out on the other side
Yeah.
has been one of the most inspirational things, man. And now they have like, this massive facility out in Carlsbad. They're doing some huge things they got going on, just like otherworldly.
Yeah.
And super, super cool. But yeah, but I would say that, but it's like that's watching. So like coming from that, watching all of that, and then navigating, through my business experiences, and now being where I am in a situation where now I have some of the freedoms and flexibility. It's like trying to navigate how to use those things and put them into work.
Well, and I think that's so important, as an artist or as a person in general, as a human being, is to have that and be dynamic and have those different experiences. I think that was a huge thing for me in LA. I was like, I don't want to just be here and be a bartender and a musician for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
Like I felt like I want to experience different things, the human experience. I want to do everything. I want to travel. I want to be a firefighter. I want to work on cars, which I got to do beforehand. I want to be versatile and be able to experience things and have those experiences. And that's something that's super cool. Kind of, how you were saying with this guy who's kind of guided you, and you've been able to see that. I have a really good buddy of mine. His name's Josh Moore, and he owns his own company now, called Fueled Supplements. And he's somebody, him and I have always kind of, I went to school with his sister. He was just a little bit younger than me, back in Montana, like in elementary and middle school. And she's an incredible artist. She's amazing. Jessie Morin's awesome. And they're just such a cool family. And I connected with him kind of during that hippie time, I call it. And he was going through the same thing. He grew up state champ wrestler. I mean, he was going to Arizona State to be a wrestler, and he had a back injury. And he had to kind of pivot and try something different. And he moved to Hawaii and lived in a bus and did these different things. And him and I have always kind of been kind of neck and neck in that stuff. So we did that. And then we both somebody was like, man, I want to do something different, he wanted to create his own business. And I was like, I want to go, become a firefighter and really push this music thing. So it seemed like every single time I would have something going in the right direction, he would too. And we've been able to jam back and forth about, and he's super savvy with marketing and business and things like that. So he's able to say, I could send him an album cover or this different things. He goes, hey, you should do this or that. Or I've been able to cruise out and help like MC and play some music for some of his events. And it's just those kind of people in your life where you can, in your circumstance, kind of watch and grow and follow that. And then I've had the experience with my buddy Josh of being able to go through it with somebody and kind of, if I've learned something, I could say, hey man, you should do this, or he learned something, he should say, hey, you should do that. And we've been able to collaborate. I do, I try to do them every week, but I do these Monday mornings with Sammy, kind of video messages on Instagram. And it's usually, I have a couple folks who reach out and say, hey man, that was really cool. Thanks for posting that. And it's never something where I'm like trying to preach to people. It's more or less something where maybe I'm kind of going through something, and it's one of those speak it into existence things where I'm like, you know what? I kind of learned something this week. I'm going to go say it.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody else will feel, it'll resonate with somebody else, but I'll also be able to say, I put my name on that. So I'm going to try and go after that and live that. And so, it's kind of called Fueled by Fueled Supplements, which is his company, and he shares it. And that's a cool way for us to kind of introduce both of our audiences, if you will, to each other, and two guys who put that discipline and that sacrifice and believe in what each other's doing, believe in what we're doing ourselves too. It's good to have, and that's, goes back to helping each other, supporting each other, and having those connections with people.
Takes a village, man.
Yeah, it's true. Well, and that, I mean, like you were saying, the things that you've learned through business and entrepreneurship that have brought you to music. It's like, I grew up in motocross was the main thing. It definitely took a team. It took my dad taking care of things. It took sacrifice from my sister, who's also an incredible musician. We got to play together last night, did a song together.
That was great.
And she's a mom. She's got an incredible little girl, June. And she, everybody sacrificed for me to be able to do that. But it did come down to what I was doing, what I was executing, my work ethic. And that was kind of a one person sport. And I've always done acoustic things on my own, and getting into the fire service really taught me about that village, that teamwork, that team atmosphere of what it takes to get something done on an emergency scene or just in general. So that, I think, has definitely prepared me for the step of, getting into a band and dealing with different personalities and different things, and how everybody creates what that band sound is. And it's important to be able to work together with everybody and utilize everybody's skills. Yeah. So it's why it's good to be dynamic. It's good to have those other experiences.
Absolutely. And that goes a long ways with a band for sure.
Oh.
Just being able, it's like a degree in organizational leadership.
Yeah, for sure.
It's one of those, learning how to navigate people's personalities, and it's like herding kittens, man. Yeah. And I always say that with a band. Man.
Oh my gosh. My captain said that the other day. That's funny you said that. Yeah. He's just like, it's hurting a bunch of people, hurting a bunch of cattle. It's just, it's tough, but it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's cool. So, so you moved to Oceanside, and how long have you been firefighter?
Just over a year.
Over a year.
This spot.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can grow the hair out now.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's been a big talking point, because forever it's been kind of, it's been a 1 or a 0.
Yeah.
And now it seems to only want to grow straight out. So eventually I'm hoping it'll fall down one of these days, but it's nice to be able to have
my buddies in Carlsbad. They were, so my good buddy, he works at Carlsbad Fire.
Okay.
Through him, I've met a bunch of his like coworkers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they've somehow managed to go, they've all grown their hair out. So basically, when they got out of the academy, they basically been growing their hair out for a year.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Have they? So
not off the academy, off probation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's where I'm at after that year. You can kind of you get that kind of breath of fresh air. Obviously, you're still learning and still dialing yourself in as a firefighter, but you get to have a little bit of that personality, let your hair grow out and do the fun things like that. So,
well, he was a firefighter in Vista for a few years, and he moved over there. And then,
he had to start over. Yeah, as far as doing the whole thing. Yeah,
but his captain, he's kind of the one that took it upon himself, because it was kind of one of those things where it was like, well, girls can have long hair.
Okay, yeah.
And he's like, so if they can have long hair, why can't I have long hair?
Yeah.
And so he's kind of been leading the way on it.
Yeah.
He's pushing it for sure.
Yeah.
And it's definitely too, like some of them, like a lot of them, have a lot more tattoos than I think that you probably used to be able to have and stuff like that too.
Yeah, no, it's definitely growing. And I mean, as far as the hair thing goes, it's just that kind of coming of age, earning your stripes kind of thing. You are there to learn and earn your spot. You're not there to be, you don't have that experience yet.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, saying your number is not the right way to put it, especially where I work. Everybody's super appreciated and everybody loves each other, but it is something where you're just one more, shaved head, and everybody looks the same, and you're learning and doing that. And,
until you've earned it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's something that, you don't necessarily, I don't believe, you earn it every day. You work to earn it every day, even after that. It's not something where it's a year, oh, you're good.
Yeah.
Grow your hair out, party, have a good time.
Right.
It's, you continue that, because you're also grooming the next group of guys who are coming through and group of people. And no, it's cool. I mean, it's just like you say, it's freedom on the other side of discipline. So that's just part of that. It teaches you that for life and for the fire services, that discipline, keep that nice high and tight, keep that mentality, keep that focus, and then you earn it, and then you can appreciate it now. I mean, it's definitely a lot tougher to deal with hair than no hair. Yeah. It wasn't too bad, now you got to do your hair.
You got to think about it.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm grateful for it and grateful for the process, and doing it all. So it's fun.
Yeah. So what's so that kind of brings us back to current. We've
Yeah.
had you at the Vineyard a few times out over there. And then where else have you been playing? Because like you've managed to stay pretty busy relatively. I mean, granted, you're going through probation with the fire stuff, and then,
Yeah, no, and they've been super supportive of that
Yeah.
too. You know, it's cool. I just I would play out before kind of COVID hit and everything. I play out in Palm Springs a lot.
Okay.
I have a really good friend, Lance, who's another amazing musician I met through the bartending circuit out in LA. He plays out there a ton. He's got a great band, Blackwater Gospel. They're super good rock band, really fun, really talented folks. And he just introduced me to a booker out there, and I play out there quite a bit. And that was one of the first shows. We've been talking about it recently at the Firehouse. A group of guys came out to my really close friends on my shift. Came out to that first show and got the first kind of look into what I do on the side, and that was something that really showed my passion for it. And I
Sure.
think they totally appreciated that. So it's always been a support even through probation with that. But I played out there quite a bit. I played on Friday. I mean, since probably February, I haven't played there.
Yeah.
It was probably until I played the Vineyard back in, I don't know, was it August or September was the first one?
Maybe August.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was probably 6 months there where I didn't, 4 or 5 months where I didn't play. And I just played in my house. I did in my apartment. I coined this place called the Lion's Den.
Okay.
Because I had like a lion tapestry, and I do weekly like live streams on Instagram. And that was definitely a way to feed that. You know, it was a very interesting way.
Yeah, I was saying, how is so I know a lot of people that have done that in different capacity. What was kind of your experience doing that?
It was fun. It's very awkward at first because you're literally looking at yourself the whole time, and you just see people pop up with, comments and stuff, but you're not getting you're not reading a crowd. You're not getting the energy of the crowd. So it's just, you got to be on the whole time. It's interesting, but it's fun too, because you have people who really do enjoy live music, who are hungry for that. And so people would hop on and support it and send it to their friends. And it was a fun thing. It was a way for me to feed that part of my soul and to play and try new stuff. And it also motivated me to either write new songs, like have a new song each week, and also learn a new cover each week.
So you're doing a new song and a new cover every week?
I was trying to. I definitely did like new covers each week.
Sure.
But I would try and write and just throw stuff in, and that kind of kept me honest throughout the week of learning and
kind of something to keep you accountable.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So, because like we said, I mean, it would be easy just to go, oh, well, we can't play, we can't do that. So whenever this happens to open up, we'll do it then, or make the most out of it. And it was something I think it was, I thought about it, but it was a great friend of mine, my engineer, Hogue at the station. He just like, oh yeah, so you're doing an Instagram live tomorrow night, right? It was just like, what? No. He's like, oh, everybo's doing it, you should do it. Yeah. And so I did, and it was something I would do it the night before or a couple nights before shift. And the guys who were on shift would hop on at dinner and be watching and chime in, and it was a cool way to connect with the other guys at the station that way too, and then just keep connecting with other people that wouldn't usually get to come out to the shows. So I heard anybody I talked to had great success with it, or just had fun with it. And was able to do that.
A lot of people that were able to monetize it, that were able to make pretty decent money.
And that's what I heard. And I don't think I did that right, because I didn't push for that though. I really probably should have.
Sure.
And that was something to where my mom or Hogue, he would put it on there. Hey, let's give this guy a tip. Let's do this and that. So towards the end, I put like a little my Venmo or something up in the corner. Just hey, if you guys feel like tossing something, like it was, for me, it wasn't, I know there's a lot of people who it is their livelihood for sure. And I'm glad that they got to do that and had that outlet. So for me, I still had my job. Obviously I lost, you lose money not being able to play music. That's another part of it. But I think it just felt like, that was, I enjoyed doing it. And I was okay. I'd rather somebody toss it to the folks who made music their main living.
Sure.
Was kind of my mentality. But you know, every once in a while, I'd say, yeah, sure. If you want to do it, toss some up there, and it's appreciated. But definitely not, you know, not the focus of it. It was just fun to do it. But anybody I talked to who did it had a blast, and like you said, made good money, and I'm so glad to hear that. And it's it was a good way just to keep that momentum going for sure.
Sure. I mean, it's like part of that too is just the relevancy.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. It's like, you know, you have stuff going, and it's like you want to stay somewhat at the forefront of people's mind, you know, or you don't want them to forget almost. It's, I mean, that's one of the biggest things with momentum is kind of everything. And so with a time like this right now, it's been interesting watching people around the world shift and figure out how to keep that momentum going, or find a way to have some momentum. You know, but there's so many different things I've seen with that, you know, whether it's the live streams, stuff like that too. And I partook in, excuse me, a yawn is out of nowhere.
We're having a lot of fun over here. We're starting to fall asleep.
Dude,
a long weekend.
But also like live streams, like full band live streams. I got to partake in a couple of those at some studios. Where they you know said it. We did one with Hollander, which is really cool. We were able to record it, or we took basically the stems from it.
Okay.
And then we went and did kind of did a quick mix and master on it and put it out on Spotify just as like put something out. You know, and then but I've been seeing that too. Actually, the crew that I was talking about that work with like Live Nation and all that, they've built a production studio essentially into their space that they're doing. They're working with another crew, and they're basically have built out for someday doing shows, and it is going to be super epic spot. But they've been able to do live stream kind of events
through that venue.
I was just there a couple weeks ago for one that they did for a larger band.
Nice.
And they've had some killer bands that go through there and do some stuff. But even on the national touring act level, watching their pivots and kind of figuring out
it's amazing.
It's a local band, Switchfoot.
Totally.
You know, I have friends that work with them on some of their back end stuff, and it's been cool watching kind of what they're doing. They're just trying to find a way. You know, and just find a way to. I mean, obviously, like that's part of their livelihood too.
For sure.
You know, but also finding a way to keep their fans and engaged and giving them something and giving them some hope and something to have. You know, just to kind of make it through.
Well, and that's what I really. It's been fun to watch. I'm a fan of Machine Gun Kelly. He's I mean, obviously he's really big in the rap scene, but he's gotten kind of more punk rock. But right when everything kind of shut down, he did like what was called the lockdown session. So each day he was like producing something, a cover or something. And I mean, playing guitar, I think he even kind of just learned to play guitar more recently than anything. So it was like, he really kind of won through the whole process. I mean, I guess I remember reading something about him saying his like production team were like, these videos are doing better than anything you've ever done. Like these, you know, raw kind of just working on things, you know, by yourself, and people seeing the process of it was huge. So it was really cool to watch him do that and his process with that. And I mean, it basically throughout that, he created a punk rock album that it was his first #1 album on the Billboard.
Funny.
So it's like, you know, he's an example of pivoting in completely the right direction and just figuring it out and doing it.
And then also watching the market kind of show that like people really are enjoying this. You know, like that was, because that is kind of the market kind of dictates and will tell you a lot of times whether or not it's working.
Exactly.
And it's one of those to watch that and have something like that and be like, dude, you were doing this thing and then you started doing this other completely different thing and it's taken off and you've seen more success in that than the thing you planned to do.
Exactly. And that's where not having the ego, being able to go, all right, I'll go with that. And learning from other people too is going, all right, well, that's not working. So maybe we try
Yeah.
and go down the path of, what.
But at that
what is.
stage too, like what's hard though is I know that I can hear people right now hissing who are
Yeah,
like the super artists.
Yep.
that
Don't
are-
go.
they're
You don't want to
saying,
go
like,
commercial.
yeah,
You
they're
got to
saying,
stick to what's true.
Yeah, like, well,
Yeah.
don't just because, and I get that. I do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, with something like that, at that level, he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
He's
And
he's at a level where he literally could do whatever he wants, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But it is interesting to see like something like that, and the market tell you that this is something that is really working for people.
Yeah. Well, and I think there is a difference between selling out and also being able to see maybe where your vision just needs to shift a little bit.
Yep.
It's not necessarily like I believe in what I'm doing. I'm not going to completely change who I am, to win,
Sure.
which is not at all what I believe in, but I definitely believe in, man, if you gotta pivot a little bit in a direction maybe you didn't think you were gonna go to get further, I think it's that same kind of discipline, freedom's on the other side of discipline thing. You get to a place where then you can come out and do whatever you want to do.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
you see that with people. It's like, I'm not too, crazy. I don't know a ton about like Stapleton's process, but it's like, he worked really hard and wrote for other people for years.
Yep.
And wrote hit songs for other people, and finally came out and did his own thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was by choice. He wasn't ready for that. I don't know for sure, but it's just
Sure.
something where you see, a different process, and I think it's okay to do that. It's okay to pander just a little bit to get to that next level, and then you'll have that stage to be able to share exactly what you want, rather than sitting on your couch and going, well, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to change it all. And then you don't really get anywhere, because you kind of got to give a little bit to the people, what they want, because that's your bread and butter right there, those folks. So
I've been fortunate enough to, in Nashville, work with a couple people who were close in his camp.
Okay.
I got the chance to meet Vance Powell, who's the engineer that
recorded
all of his stuff, and Pete Lyman, who I'm actually really stoked when I go to Nashville.
That's right. That's who you're gonna do.
Yeah, I'm linking up with him.
Nice.
And he masters all of that stuff, and he mastered Hollander's record and all that. But it was cool hearing some of the stories.
Yeah.
Kind of in the process through like Stapleton putting out those records, and honestly, it was one of those things where it seemed like it was one of the most organic things. That was just like, he had been writing songs for people for so long.
Yeah.
And he just had a catalog of just song after song. All these, it's like he had a really, really deep well to pull from.
Oh, for sure.
And then after the success of Traveler, it was after that he kind of, those Volume 1, Volume 2 were mostly all songs that he had already had. They recorded both those albums at the same time.
That's insane.
Man,
That's
the
so
crazier
cool.
part is it to be like Traveler was still at like number 1 for like an ungodly amount of time or whatever it was, and then it's like, you went and recorded these Volume 1 and Volume 2 of these two epic albums of songs that he basically, they're not really new songs.
No,
they're all like,
they're for
and,
like
and
10,
they were all
20 years
recorded,
old.
and he spaced them out, and it's like, and then to go and be like number 1, 2, and 3 on the chart,
Yeah.
and to be that's crazy.
Well, and it's with songs that, and I mean, I don't know, they're probably songs that were passed on by other people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like he wrote number 1 hits for several different people, and then he still had a catalog of records that went, like you said, 1, 2, and 3. It's
That's
just insane.
I laugh at is I want to see the songs he throws away.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. They're probably the better than anything I'll ever write, for sure.
It's one of those things
He's
because
insane.
that's happening.
Yeah.
He's writing something and he's just like, nah, whatever.
I'd be like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'll take that. Let me do that.
Let me
I got
get
it.
the- let me
That
get the
sounds great,
crumbs.
man. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I love seeing that, man. That's one of those where, and you know what? And I remember hearing people too. So when he first came out too, it was one of those things where he was like, because he didn't come necessarily, well, and I guess in people's perspective, they would say like, oh, well, he wasn't part of the the machine. Like he wasn't like and you're like, well, actually he was writing all the songs for all these artists that were like
a big gear of that machine, he's creating it.
Yeah, I mean, he built a life around other people singing his songs. Like, made a substantial living off of a lot of number one songs that he didn't have to tour.
Exactly.
Which is great. And then, so I think it was one of those things where it was like, he was seen as like a country music Jesus coming to like save. And I think as he started leaning into some more of the like industry side of it, and so people like starting to kind of that thing of like, oh, he's selling out in the thing. And I'm just like, the dude has freedom to do anything that he wants right now. He can do nothing, and he could have done nothing before this.
Yep.
Like, honestly, he probably just made his life harder by putting these records out.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And touring all the time and like whatever. Like at a certain point in time.
Yeah, he's given away his, his himself in that way that now people know who he is. As a songwriter, you can be under the radar and you still live your life, but he's one of the most famous people now, rightfully so. Right. But you do give that up.
Touring the world nonstop. You put 3 records out.
Yeah.
And it's like, and but that even going to that though, it's one of those things where, and I try to explain to people, because even like the way he tours is so remarkable to me, because like I love going to like I'll go out to the amphitheater and go to the country concerts out there. I love it.
Yeah.
And it's funny is like, because I've also been more like I've been primarily like a traditional kind of country person. A lot of the stuff I've done, I've done it all, but the stuff I've always navigated towards or kind of found myself really diving into is a lot of traditional style or newer things that kind of play into or kind of reminisce in a lot of the older style stuff. But fuck, dude, I love going with all the friends and all that stuff and going out to these country concerts and just having a good time and like and understanding that like everything's about facilitating. Music is about facilitating emotions.
Yes,
I think first and foremost, but memories and good times are part of that.
Absolutely.
And it's one of those things where it's like, man, no better time than hanging out in the field. With 10,000 people. And letting the people on stage you can't even see just be a radio for a good time.
Yeah, they're the soundtrack to a good time.
But that being said, how many times have I gone and watched some of these country acts come through with 4 semis for this huge production, like massive screens and 12-piece band, and like I'm again being in business, I just start in my head. I'm like, okay, I know how much. How much the ticket costs. It was sold out. That's this much. Okay, how much is the production for all this?
Yeah.
And then seeing Stapleton come through in the same venue, and the only real production he brought was to make the stage smaller.
Yeah.
So he showed up and he had almost this little miniature amphitheater type backdrop he brought. And that was really it. And it had lights. It had lights, which is great. But he kind of took this huge stage and made it smaller because his band was him, his bass player, his drummer, and his wife.
Yeah.
And one time I saw him, there was a harmonica player, I think.
Yeah.
But the other time that was it. Dude, so I mean, you're really a 3-piece band with and then your wife singing too. And it's like, one, how much money are you making?
Oh, for sure.
Oh my God. Yeah. And that's the thing is sold out show, all that. And it's like, and it goes to show that not that all of those other shows, like without all of the lights and without all the big screens and without the fire explosions and without the 12-piece band, that they probably couldn't do the same thing.
Yeah.
Maybe some of them couldn't. I don't know. But it is one of those things to show that you sold out these shows, and it's because of your voice and your songs.
Yeah.
Strictly.
Yeah.
Because he's sitting up there, he's sitting behind a microphone, not moving.
Yeah.
Just playing his song. They're not theatrical. There's no fires going off. They're just the light you need to be able to see them and for them to see what they need to be doing, and that was it. And it was enough. More than enough.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I love, is that you're in this industry that is oftentimes blinded by all these extra things.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then you got someone like that comes in and it's just like, I don't need it. I don't need all that. All I need is my songs, my voice, and my small band.
Yeah.
And
well, that's what I got to see him at Coachella a couple years ago, which was so cool because I'm sure it's happened, but I don't know as many. There are very many artists that can play Stagecoach and Coachella.
Right.
He played both, and I was just like, I mean, it's so cool to be able, and with that kind of a setup, you go to Coachella, it's lights, it's all this crazy stuff, and he's in one of the smaller tents, and it's packed.
Yeah.
And I got up to the front, me and my friends who go, we were up at the front, and it was just, the sun was going down in the back, the palm trees, but it was just him and his wife, and their voices, and just, I mean, I don't think he looked at the crowd once.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there was no, the show was within their world right there. He's looking at her, she's looking at him, and they're smiling. I mean, they're just in it and enjoying it. And that was the show. Like you said, wasn't a whole lot to it. And it was one of the most memorable shows I've ever been to, especially there where you go and it's big lights, it's action, it's crazy stuff going on. But it was, like you said, I mean, I think that a lot of people could do that, but he is just in a league of his own, as far as his voice goes and his writing and having his wife up there. You can just see just that love and that energy is just like, I was like, man, that was an experience. It wasn't like a concert. It was just like you were right there with him.
Yeah.
It was just a blast.
I agree. But all the times I've seen him have been just like that.
Yeah.
And I've seen him I've seen him front row, seen him in the back in the field.
Yeah.
And it's magical all the way through.
Oh yeah.
It's great. I love seeing that. There's a lot of artists that I think have really tapped into that. Sturgill Simpson is one that I love.
Yeah.
Sturgill Simpson is definitely at the top of my, and he played for a long time, was playing just kind of a straightforward honky tonk kind of band, and it was pretty stripped down band. And then it was a couple records he did, the 2 later records he did, where he started kind of building on that, and he kind of A Sailor's Guide to Earth, that tour was basically an orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
He toured with a massive band. And then, but I love hearing the interviews talking, when he starts talking about, he's like, at a certain point, I just had to go back to just me.
Yeah, dude.
He's like, I had this other guitar player, stuff like that. Yeah, he's like, I could play all the lead stuff. I could play all, he's like, and I just, nope. And he went back, and then he's like, what's cool is also listening to him, again, also going back to this though, at that time, he's at a spot where he could do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
No one is going to give a shit. Like, he could sit up there and talk about shit in his pants or something like that, and everyone's gonna listen.
It's just, he's got his people that are gonna follow him.
Absolutely. And but it's cool to hear him navigate through. He's like, man, I wrote all these songs with all this crazy stuff, and like we had to figure out how to play him as like a 4-piece band now.
Yeah.
We had this thing where it was like a 20-piece with with the between all the orchestra and everything, and now how do we play these songs? And it's cool to see that. And then even like this newest stuff he's done, where he stripped him down even more to like a bluegrass.
Okay.
And he's done, I don't know if you've heard that at all, but
not his newer stuff, I don't think.
It just came out, and it's not any new songs. He just pulled from those records and he just did them in like a traditional kind of bluegrass setting.
Yeah.
In which he talks about as being kind of how he probably envisioned them to begin with before they were kind of produced into these other things. But hearing them in that raw dynamic and hearing them like that are just like, it's cool because they're all the songs that, if you've followed him and you're into that, they're all the songs
Yeah.
and you hear them and you're like, it's crazy to hear, because I could still sing along to them.
Yeah.
But they're so different.
Well, that's what like the stripped down versions of things, or the storyteller, kind of the way the old MTV Unplugged too. Yep. Just that kind of
Nirvana
style.
one, that Nirvana Unplugged is probably their most popular record.
Yeah, right. And it's just, it just goes back to that part of it. It's about the lyrics and about the voice and about the delivery and energy of that person, and that's what's so cool. about people who write their own stuff and write from experience. I mean, I think there's different artists who are super good at picking songs and writing other people or singing other people's songs.
Sure. Yeah.
But it is, I mean, it's, you know, kind of circling back to the idea of, you know, selling out or not, or doing whatever. I think that, you know, if you do allow yourself, probably just like Sturgill, you know, to go to that bigger 20 piece, you know, at least either you're going to really learn about your music and different ways you can do it and go back to the original way. And then you can be certain that that's the right way to do it. Or you can really, I think you expand your scope a little bit of what you're capable of as a musician.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't think anything's ever going to beat, you know, a guy sitting up at a bar somewhere and singing his heart out with a guitar is one of the most just raw and, you know, really romantic things is it's just, you know, they're pouring their heart out. But there's, you know, there's so many different ways to entertain and bring a song to life. So it's like, I don't think you can ever be, you know, too critical on sticking to something. And I learned that this year through my process. You know, it was like, I had songs, you know, that I talked to my producer about, and I was like, man, I don't want to veer away from this. He's like, we don't have to, but he goes, there's a difference between, you know, this song that you're doing live at a show with a guitar and people are there, to translating that to a radio friendly song. You got a 4.5, 5 minute song here. It's a great song, but it's not radio friendly. It's not going to be, and that's kind of where you're at right now. We want to, you know, you've got I have other records that are out that are that stuff, which I'm very proud of and really, you know, excited about to have out. But it gets to a point where you are trying to create, you know, trying to open that door to a bigger audience and different people. And that is, you know, getting to that chorus sooner. And there's a formula to it. And at first I was that way. I was like, no, I can't veer off. But, you know, I put that kind of aside and said, let's just go with it. Like, let's, you know, this guy knows what he's doing. He's created amazing music. I've never done this before.
Sure.
I trust him. Let's do it, you know, and I'm so grateful that I did. It didn't, you know, and that goes back to anything else, you know, it didn't turn out exactly the way I thought it was. It turned out better. Yeah. You know, it really did. And it's like, I can always go back and release, you know, if I'm ever fortunate enough to gain a bigger following where you do have that freedom, you can always go back and release, hey, you know what, this is the way that song was written.
Yes.
The bare bones acoustic version of it. And then you can talk about it and it's awesome. But you know, all that stuff, I think just being open and dynamic to creating music that does connect with people. If you can connect what your vision is with what you think, you know, with what the market is and what people will be able to connect with. Yeah. You know, there's that formula. And you can always have your songs that you're like, no, I'm not messing with that one.
Sure.
That's it. That's the way it is. And I went through that with a couple of them. I was like, no, I think we need to keep this. And I was proud I did, but I was also proud that I was able to go, you know what? No, I'm going to, like, let's roll with it. I trust you, and open that up. So,
well, they all turned out great.
No, I appreciate that. No,
super rad.
Very grateful for them. So,
but it's interesting because that's one of the things I've found too in dealing with different artists and stuff too. And because, in LA, it's a different beast in its own. There's a lot of artists that can come from who didn't play out. Mm-hmm. They don't have the reps playing to nobody in the bar and trying to fill 3 hours and stuff like that. And they get molded in the studio. And then they have a hurdle to jump when it comes to doing that. Now, how do I translate this?
Yeah, that's true.
And then, but conversely, there is that where, you know, a lot of the artists that I've spent time with and in the studio and in the production phases, is there people who have been doing working gigs and they're writing these songs and they're writing them because that's the world they're living in. Is I'm out playing these things and I got to fill 3 hours, and there's a lot of that's happening. Yeah. And now their hurdle is, when I get in the studio, how does this thing now going to translate exactly with a band around it, with, you know, in the context of keeping it concise and all those things. And that is tricky, but it takes that ability though, like you said, I mean, like your willingness to say, I trust you, you know, to have people around that you can trust, that'll kind of help you navigate it or kind of show you kind of, or open your eyes up to some of those things, because it is hard, because you come from this side over here, and now I'm trying to accomplish this thing over here, and they do different things. What music does for somebody in a room is vastly different than what it does when it's coming through my car speakers.
Absolutely.
And what's cool is that if you're able to maintain the integrity of the song, to be able to still have it be both. And that's always the biggest challenge. But man, it is hard sometimes to get some of these things in the studio to be what you kind of, without tearing them out completely apart. Because especially if you've been playing songs for somebody out, for so many people too. I'd be, you've been, so many people, my friends have been hearing this song for 3 years. Now I'm in the studio and we're gonna do what? And so it's hard, because you're like, man, I'm about to fuck some people up. Because they're not gonna even recognize this song now, because you're trying to open your audience to everybody else too. Because everyone else hasn't had a chance to see you, because everybody else lives everywhere else.
Exactly.
It's that's a hard thing, but I think, for me, at least from my perspective, like, I didn't have any experience with any of your songs really prior to me hearing them. Through Spotify and stuff like that. And when I did, and so it was cool hearing them there, and then watching the way you play them live. And it's cool because they cover the spread on both areas.
I appreciate that.
That's good to hear. But they're very well, in the context of what they are on Spotify. They're very well put together. They're very well produced. They're very well, like, they fit into that thing of what you're trying to do. And then, but it's great because the melody lines are all the same. And when you get to the chorus, it's all the same. And if you know it, you could sing along all the same.
Exactly.
But being able to hear it with just you and a guitar, that's, it's great. And that's also the testament to a great song. Because it starts with a song first, and it's, you can only polish a piece of shit so well.
That's true. That's very true. Very true.
But they're great songs, man. And I gotta say, I'm super excited to be working with you and getting the band around it and all that, man. That's gonna be super fun.
I'm crazy grateful for you and for getting the other guys together. It's just like, one of those things it's something I've always had in the back of my head, but it is, I don't know. It just was tough for a long time. You just kind of, I think you get in a groove, especially as an acoustic artist. It's just easy because you control everything. You're not having to rely on anybody else. It's scary at the same time because you're the only person to rely on. So it's you and your guitar, but, it's something that I always did obviously want to put together and felt like was the next step that needed to happen, was to be able to do those live shows with the full band and that energy and kind of bringing those songs to life. So, it's funny how life works out, but I'm super, super grateful to be able to work with you and work with these other guys and make it happen. It's going to be fun.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to get at it here pretty soon.
Is it time? Are we already there?
Getting close. Yeah.
But
we're good to wrap if you want.
Yeah, let's do it. No,
cool,
I'm ready to get playing here this evening. Get playing some music. We said, we've been talking about it for a couple hours now. It's time to go out and execute and do it. So.
Super excited for that.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. I appreciate you coming on and doing this.
Yep.
Super rad. I'm excited to this has been such a cool thing, man. I love doing these things, and especially in situations like this where, like, I don't know a ton, other than what we've been able to have in short conversations and being able to do stuff like that. Honestly, though, even the people that I know, realizing how much I learned. How much you learn about people, and it's been such a cool thing. And but I'm grateful that people like yourself are just continuing to be willing to give me the time.
Oh yeah, no, and I mean, you're, talk you up a little bit here. You're really good at keeping that conversation going. You ask the right questions, and I think that's really tough to do. I mean, you listen to a lot of different podcasts, and it's these weird breaks and this and that, and it you make it flow easy, you make it fun, and obviously a little tequila and beer helps that out too. But it's I'm honored to be here, and it's fun in this seat too, because I think you learn a little bit about yourself too through that process, and hopefully nothing too crazy that's going to be on Spotify and iTunes and all that for the world to hear that you've come to a realization about.
Yeah.
But no, I totally appreciate
funny
being.
you say that, because that has been the thing. Like, people are constantly asking me. So if you're listening to this and you're 2 hours in and you're like, why the fuck are these podcasts so long? I've had a lot of people ask, when we're talking about doing the podcast, and they're like, so what was kind of your decision to do these longer formatted podcasts? And what you said, honestly, is exactly why.
Yeah.
Like, besides the fact that, like, okay, now I get to have these more engaged conversations that are a little bit more in depth, but you just learn, like, as a consumer, watching someone develop an answer and develop the conversation, you learn so much about someone in that process, almost as much as what they're going to say.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I loved about the things that I find myself listening to, or the same reason why I've talked in the past about why I like look for the longer interviews when I'm trying to research some artists, or I'm trying to dive more into kind of their story or their songwriting process. I constantly am like, what's the longest interview I can find?
Yeah.
Because that's what I found in that, is that it's like you just learn so much more in that process of kind of in how someone operates and how their brain works and how they're kind of coming to themselves in the moment.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's like I said, that's a testament to who leads it, like yourself, is being able to make somebody feel comfortable and leading them, into being being okay with, like you said at the beginning, talk as long as you want, talk as short as you want, because I've sat here a couple times through this. I'm like, man, I've been talking for a little while now. I need to slow it down. But you kind of gave that permission in the beginning, and that's really cool, and that's totally appreciated, because it is, it's a cool way to kind of to be able to tell people not only my stuff, but I mean also learn stuff about you as well through that process, and kind of get a deeper look into each other's musical endeavors and life, and I feel like you gain a lot from that and learn a lot about life and music and everything. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
Hell yeah.
All right.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
I guess first time love takes two, and you don't feel the same way that I do. Oh, I'm never gonna call you baby. I guess I'm just crazy. Said I guess I'm just crazy.